Welcome to Year in Review, the show where we break down a year to bring you some of the most notable moments in TV and film month by month. Let's take things back to the beginning of a decade, and not just any decade, we're talking about the 90s. That's right, 1990, when the 80s were fresh in the rear view and 10 more years of highs and lows awaited. Cheers was dominating the airwaves in its 9th season, while a couple of guys named Brandon and Dylan were about to teach a new generation all about sideburns. Movie stars like Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger continued to shine, while future stars like Julia Roberts were coming in hot. Plus, a new Christmas classic was about to be born. So get ready to do some voguing, thanks to a popular Madonna song that year, cause this is gonna be fun. 1990, here we come.
My husband taught me to run a car.
Yes.
I remember everything he said. So don't you think even for a second that you... Now wait, you're speeding, I can see it.
No, Miss Daisy, no. We only doing about 19 miles an hour.
I like to go under the speed limit.
Yes. But the speed limit's 35, yeah.
And helping kick the 90s off at a leisurely pace was the film Driving Miss Daisy. Jessica Tandy stars as an elderly woman living in Atlanta who, against her wishes, takes on a chauffeur played by Morgan Freeman to help her get around town. And while things are rocky at first, they eventually form a close friendship.
I ever tell you about the first time I leave the state of Georgia?
When was that?
A few minutes back.
Go on.
Yes.
But it was Tandy who was really driving the hype train, as her Oscar win for Best Actress was one of 4 the film earned, not to mention Best Picture, out of 9 nominations. Critics say, while it's fueled in part by outdated stereotypes, Driving Miss Daisy takes audiences on a heartwarming journey with a pair of outstanding actors.
I'm sure you understand I'm not thrilled at the idea of your turning 40 years of my work into your garage sale.
At the price I'm paying for this stock, Mr. Morse, you are going to be a very rich man.
I'm rich enough. I just want to head my shipyard.
Slippery little suckers.
And walking down the street and into theaters in March of 1990 was the hit rom-com Pretty Woman. Julia Roberts stars in this film as Vivian Ward, a free-spirited Hollywood sex worker who is hired for a week by a businessman named Edward, played by Richard Gere. Initially, the film was pitched as a dark drama about prostitution in Los Angeles in the 1980s, including themes like Vivian being a drug addict. Thankfully, it was Jeffrey Katzenberg, president of Walt Disney Studios at the time, who insisted that the film instead be a modern-day love story.
Something's missing.
Well, nothing else is gonna fit into this dress, I'll tell you that.
Maybe something in this box. I don't want you to get too excited. It's only on loan.
Pretty Woman pulled in over $460 million worldwide to become the 3rd highest grossing film of 1990. And for her efforts, Roberts received a Golden Globe Award for her performance and was also nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, but lost to Kathy Bates for Misery. More importantly, however, is that she solidified her seat at the big star table. Critics say, Pretty Woman may be a yuppie fantasy, but the film's slick comedy, soundtrack, and casting can overcome misgivings.
You fight well in the old style. But you've caused me enough trouble. Now you face the Shredder.
The Shredder?
Maybe all that hardware's for making coleslaw.
And from the sewers to the theaters in March came Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, directed by Steve Barron, who is probably best known for directing Michael Jackson's Billie Jean music video. Damn, I'm good. This film follows 4 turtles who were mutated by radioactive ooze and went on to become crime-fighting ninjas. Hey, it happens, with the one and only Corey Feldman providing the voice of Donatello. He's the brains of the operation. This movie was an adaptation of the early TMNT comics and borrowed a few more elements from the popular animated series at the time. And if you haven't had enough fun facts for this one, just know that the turtle costumes were developed by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, one of the last projects before Henson's death. The more you know.
Yes, friends, the new Turbo Ginsu. Woohoo! It dices, it slices, and yet makes French fries in 3 different. Whoops.
Kids.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a box office success and set the stage for 2 early 90s sequels before a total reboot in 2014. Cowabunga! Critics say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is exactly as advertised. One-liners, brawls, and general silliness. Good for the young at heart, irritating for everyone else. And arriving a few decades early, or was it late, in May of 1990 was Back to the Future Part 3, the final installment of the Back to the Future trilogy with director Robert Zemeckis and the main cast once again returning. This time, Marty McFly finds out about the death of his buddy Doc Brown in 1985 and must travel back in time to save him, leading to them trying to figure out how to escape the dangers of the Old West and get themselves, wait for it, Back to the Future. With a $40 million budget, filming began shortly after Back to the Future Part 2 wrapped, and took place partially in Arizona, where the production team built the 1885 Hill Valley set from scratch, rather than using existing sets. Part 3 opened just 6 months after the previous installment, and grossed $246 million worldwide to become the 6th highest grossing film of the year. Critics say Back to the Future Part 3 draws the trilogy to a satisfying close, with a simpler, sweeter round of time travel antics.
Get him! He's got a gun! Cut him off that way! Over there! Hold it! Don't move! Get away!
Released on June 1st was the Arnold Schwarzenegger action flick Total Recall, directed by Paul Verhoeven and based on the 1966 short by Philip K. Dick. In it, Arnold Schwarzenegger stars as a futuristic man whose life gets dangerously confusing after he has virtual vacation memories of visiting Mars planted in his head. The movie was shot almost entirely in sequence and used a lot of practical special effects, amounting to a reported budget of between $50 and $80 million, which was huge for the time. Total Recall ultimately had solid box office success, and despite mixed reviews upon its release, the now certified fresh film is viewed by many as one of Schwarzenegger's best projects. And in the years since, the movie has gone full franchise with comic books, video games, a TV adaptation, and a film remake. Critics say, under Paul Verhoeven's frenetic direction, Total Recall is a fast-paced rush of violence, gore, and humor that never slacks.
Hey, it's a restricted area. What's the matter? Been waiting for the sky cap?
We work here.
See some ID.
Sure. No problem.
Take it!
And bringing snow-covered action to 4th of July weekend in 1990 was Die Hard 2, the second installment in the Die Hard film series, if you couldn't tell by the number 2 part of it. This one takes place a year after Bruce Willis's John McClane saved Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles, this time finding himself battling terror threats at a Washington, D.C. airport. Jeez, the luck with this guy.
John McClane. Yeah, I know who you are. You're the asshole that just broke 7 FAA and 5 District of Columbia regulations running around my airport with a gun shooting at people. What do you call that shit?
Self-defense.
While the first Die Hard was based on a 1979 Roderick Thorpe novel, this installment was adapted from Walter Wager's 1987 novel called 58 Minutes, but with a few plot points and names changed to match the franchise. The result was a bigger box office return that nearly doubled the first one and an overall strong reception from fans and critics. So why not do it again, and again, and again? You get the point. Critics say it lacks the fresh thrills of its predecessor, but Die Hard 2 still works as an over-the-top and reasonably taut, big-budget sequel with plenty of set pieces to paper over the plot deficiencies.
I need you to tell Molly what I'm saying, but you have to tell her word for word, all right? Word for word.
Yes. He wants me to tell you what he's saying word for word.
Molly, you're in danger.
Now, you can't just blurt it out like that and quit moving around, will you? Because you're starting to make me dizzy. I'll just tell her in my own way.
And also making itself seen in July was the film Ghost, marking the first time that director Jerry Zucker worked solo after co-directing comedies like Airplane and Top Secret. The movie stars Patrick Swayze as a murdered man who tracks down a psychic, played by Whoopi Goldberg, to help him protect his girlfriend from the person who killed him. Even with its impressive cast, which also included Demi Moore in a starring role, this film somewhat exceeded expectations. It grossed $505 million at the worldwide box office to become the highest grossing film of 1990, and the third highest grossing film ever at the time. Ghost was also nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and won 2 for Best Original Screenplay and Best Supporting Actress for Goldberg. And let's be honest, it gave us a certain pottery wheel scene that would be spoofed and parodied for years to come. Critics say, Ghost offers viewers a poignant romance while blending elements of comedy, horror, and mystery, all adding up to one of the most enduringly watchable hits of its era.
Are you telling me McDaniel was not a random victim?
All right, we got a specialist who says the only way this thing makes sense is if the recipient had a condition that required a match.
And McDaniel's kidney fits the bill.
Well, he'd have to be tested to make sure, but the problem is McDaniel swears from now till Sunday that he's never been tested.
Grand theft kidney. Terrific.
And just when 1990 needed a little Law and Order to help set things straight, in came the new drama series Law and Order in September. Hey, not every intro can be a winner, okay? Cut us some slack. Created by Dick Wolf, who would use this show to become a powerhouse in the industry, Law & Order regularly uses the formula of following a crime, usually murder, during the investigation and then the court prosecution over the course of an hour.
Beagle wants to deal, you're the barter.
Beagle and Zalter are out on bail. Don't you think it's funny nobody came forward to help you?
Big fish eat littler fish.
I had nothing to do with it.
Beagle and Zalter tell a different story.
You know the truth, Joe. Was it Rufo? Did he kill Mackie Yamasuchi's orders?
You don't know what you're asking me.
Was it Rufo?
The series initially ended in 2010 after 20 seasons and was revived in 2022. The Emmy-winning show spawned a franchise that includes video games, a TV movie, international adaptations, and more series, including Law & Order SVU, which is now the longest-running live-action scripted show ever. Critics say, formulaic to be sure, Law & Order nonetheless synthesizes an endlessly watchable blend of crime procedural intrigue and legal system dramatics.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Just, you know how you tell a story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the f am I funny? What the f is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Get the f out of here, Tommy.
You motherfucker! I almost had him! I almost had him!
And the same month Law & Order came to TV, 1990, organized crime hit theaters in the form of Goodfellas, directed and co-written by Martin Scorsese. Based on the 1985 book Wise Guy by Nicholas Pileggi, who co-wrote the screenplay with Scorsese, this film chronicles the rise and fall of mob associate Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, from 1955 to 1980.
For most of the guys, killing's got to be accepted. Murder was the only way that everybody stayed in line. You got out of line, you got whacked. Everybody knew the rules.
With a cast that also includes Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Goodfellas was nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director, with Pesci winning for Best Supporting Actor. And as our own United States Library of Congress recognized it with entry into the National Film Registry, this movie has been regarded as one of the best films ever made, especially in the gangster genre. Critics say, hard-hitting and stylish, Goodfellas is a gangster classic, and arguably the high point of Martin Scorsese's career.
West Beverly isn't like other schools. Kids here are richer. Some of their parents are celebs. So it's definitely not your normal high school. And socially, it's really intense. You make one false move in your history. I mean, if people here saw you eating lunch alone today like that guy over there.
You know, I had a lot of great friends at my old school.
This show followed a group of friends living in Beverly Hills, California, depicting their journey through high school into college and beyond. And while it did touch on some serious topics at times, 90210 also had plenty of teen drama and romance.
Marianne?
Liar! How can you do that? How can you go around spreading those rumors after I spilled my guts to you like that?
Hey, I had nothing to do with it, I swear.
You know, you're just like everyone else. You're like every other creep. You used me to get a name for yourself.
Look, Marianne, I didn't say anything.
Well, then who did?
The show ran for 10 seasons on Fox, but ended up being just the first of 6 series in the 90210 franchise. And while the cast and fashions evolved over time, the iconic sideburns worn by Jason Priestley's character when the show first kicked off are hard to ignore and should never be forgotten.
I'm up here, you morons! Come and get me! You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
Heads up!
And not to be forgotten, in November of 1990 was the theatrical release of Home Alone, directed by Chris Columbus, a couple of years after making his debut with Adventures in Babysitting. Macaulay Culkin stars in this film about a boy who is accidentally left behind when his family heads to the airport in a hurry, leaving him with a big empty house and 2 burglars who have been causing chaos in the neighborhood. Home Alone was written by John Hughes, who also wrote another holiday classic in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation the year before.
Shut it, Marv! Hey, guys. Check this out.
Go back! Oh, go back! Good. Go back. Okay.
Hughes, who conceived the film while preparing for vacation and wondering what would happen if he left his son behind, suggested that they cast Culkin after his experience with the actor on Uncle Buck. The movie grossed nearly $477 million worldwide to become the highest-grossing live-action comedy until The Hangover Part 2 in 2011. Plus, it made Culkin a child star on the way to becoming an absolute must-watch flick every December. Critics say Home Alone's uneven but frequently funny premise, stretched unreasonably thin, is buoyed by Macaulay Culkin's cute performance and strong supporting stars.
The profanity bothers you.
It has no nobility.
These are slum kids. I was a slum kid. Everybody talks like that.
They do not. What do you think I say when I go to the feed store in town? Oh, now, Wally, give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that cow corn.
And bringing a little joy to the fall weather in November of 1990 was the Stephen King adaptation Misery, directed by Rob Reiner and based on King's 1987 novel of the same name. The film stars Kathy Bates as the obsessive fan of an author played by James Caan, who holds him captive in her house and forces him to rewrite the finale of his famous book series.
We have the power to give misery eternal life. We must finish the book.
But the time is now. Soon others will come.
It's almost finished.
The little-known Bates ended up with the role after names like Bette Midler and Angelica Houston turned it down. And she made the most of it, earning plenty of critical praise to go along with a Best Actress Oscar, still the only Stephen King adaptation with an Academy Award. Critics say, elevated by standout performances from James Caan and Kathy Bates, this taut and frightening film is one of the best Stephen King adaptations to date.
Look! For Martinez to make it a 5-run inning and blow this game to pieces.
I'll be darned.
And closing out 1990 by keeping things on the cutting edge was the film Edward Scissorhands, released on December 14th. Johnny Depp stars in the film as a mysterious young man with scissor blades for hands who comes to live with a kind woman and her family, including a daughter played by Winona Ryder, and ends up disrupting their community with his odd but charming ways. The film was directed by Tim Burton, who conceived it from his childhood upbringing in suburban Burbank, California, with the genesis of Edward coming from a drawing he did as a teenager. And the film got fast-tracked thanks to Burton's critical and financial success with 1989's Batman. Burton brought in big-time pros like composer Danny Elfman for music and the legendary Stan Winston to create the Scissorhands. And it's the first time Burton collaborated with Johnny Depp, which must have been a good time because they would become friends and go on to make many, many more films together. Critics say the first collaboration between Johnny Depp and Tim Burton. Edward Scissorhands is a magical modern fairy tale with gothic overtones and a sweet center. Well, there it is, 1990 tightly rolled into one nice fancy package. If we learned one thing today, it's that no matter if you were alive or not in 1990, there's no better time than right now to relive that magical year. And there's no better way to do it than with movies and shows like these, and also Sideburns. Thanks for checking out our year in review for 1990. We'll see you next time.